So good morning, everyone. We're going to start with a little bit of music today. Our opening hymn, Come, Come, Whoever You Are. I invite you to rise as you're willing and able. Anthony and I are going to lead you singing this 2 times through, and then we're going to sing it as a round. So this side of the room will be following me, we'll be the leaders, and that side of the room will be following Anthony, and you will pick up after us. So let's sing this 2 times through.
Come, come, whoever you are, wanderer, worshiper, lover of leaving. Ours is no caravan of despair. Come yet again, come. Come, come, wherever you are, wanderer, worshiper, lover of leaving. Ours is no caravan of despair. Come yet again, come.
Come, come, whoever you are, wanderer, worshiper, lover of leaving. Ours is Ours is no caravan of despair. Come yet again, come. Come, come, whoever you are, wanderer, worshiper, lover of leaving. Ours is no caravan of despair. Come yet again, come. Come, whoever you are, wanderer, worshiper, lover of leaving. Ours is no caravan of despair. Come yet again, come.
Good morning. Great to see all of you on this beautiful day. Isn't it great that fall is kicking off? Oh, 80 degrees all week. Yes. I want to welcome you all to our Sunday service. I'm the Reverend Lucy Bunch, one of the ministers serving this congregation. Our preacher today is our ministerial intern, Rosemary Dodd, and her sermon is titled, Loving Our Neighbors. Really? Whether you are here in person or participating online, we are so glad you're here. Whoever you are, wherever you are on your journey, come, come. We welcome you. The mission of our congregation says that we come together to deepen our lives and be a force for healing in the world. And towards this end, we acknowledge that UUSS exists on the occupied ancestral territory of the Nisenan, Southern Maidu, and Miwok peoples. We wish to pay our respects to their ancestors, elders, and relatives, and to affirm their sovereign right as First Peoples. If you're on Zoom this morning, we're so glad you're here. Make sure to click on the link in the chat so you can see the order of service. There are so many ways to connect with this vibrant community. Each week we have tables in the welcome hall where you can get connected. And if you're new to us, fill out a newcomer card. If you fill that out, you'll get our weekly message, which comes out on Friday. You can also fill it out online by a link in the chat. Each week, our blue sheet, anybody have a blue sheet to hold up? Oh, there we go. Our blue sheet tells you everything you need to know, and it's online, weekly message/blue sheet, so check that out. Those of you on Zoom, you'll be put into breakout rooms after the service, so please stay and have an opportunity to get acquainted with others in the Zoom community of UUSS. And if you're here in person, we'll have coffee, tea, and conversation on the patio. A couple of announcements today. Our nominations are open for the 2024 community partners. These are the organizations that receive half of our Sunday offering for a month. It generally turns out to be about $3,000 that we donate to each of these organizations. So if you have an organization you'd like to nominate, right on the front page there's a link to that will tell you about the nomination process and give you a link to the form. But our special announcement today comes from Rachel Nickel.
Good morning. I am Rachel Nickel, and I'm a member of this year's auction team here with our official kickoff announcement. The 2023 UUSS Auction and Dinner Magic of Community will be held Saturday, November 4th from 5 to 8 p.m. We are looking for donations of experiences, adventures, and talents for our auction, as well as theme baskets for our raffle. Visit the auction table during coffee hour for donation forms and to learn how you can help make this event a magical success. Thanks.
Oh, you get applause. Wow. Finally, let's all take a moment to silence our cell phones so that we can all be present during the service. And now let us enter into this place of sanctuary.
In the neighborhood, a beautiful day for a neighbor. Would you be mine? Could you be mine? It's a neighborly day in this beauty wood, a neighborly day in this beauty. Would you be mine? Could you be mine? I have always wanted to have a neighbor just like you. I've always wanted to live in a neighborhood with you. So let's make the most of this beautiful wood. Since stay together, we might as well say, would you be mine? Could you be mine? Won't you be my neighbor? Won't you please? Won't you please? Please won't you be my neighbor? It's a beautiful day in the neighborhood, a beautiful day for a neighbor. Would you be mine? Could you be mine? It's a neighborly day in the beauty wood, a neighborly day for a beauty. Would you be mine? Could you be mine? I have always wanted to have a neighbor just like you. I have always wanted to live in a neighborhood with you. So let's make the most of this beautiful day. Since we're together, we might as well say, would you be mine? Could you be mine? Won't you be my neighbor? Won't you please? Won't you please? Please won't you be my neighbor?
I'd like to invite Zoe Ozdemir up to light our chalice. Zoe grew up in this congregation. Our chalice lighting this morning is by Richard S. Gilbert, entitled, We Meet on Holy Ground. We meet on holy ground, brought into being as life encounters life, as personal histories merge into the communal story, as we take on the pride and pain of our companions, as separate selves become community. How desperate is our need for one another, our silent beckoning to our neighbors, our invitations to share life and death together, our welcome into the lives of those we meet, and their welcome into our own. May our souls capture this treasured time. May our spirits celebrate our meeting in this time and in this space, for we meet on holy ground.
I'd like to invite all those involved in RE to make their way from their seats out towards the welcome hall through the back to continue the service over yonder as we sing your song. You just can head right out that direction. You gotta put one foot in front of the other and lead with love. Put one foot in front of the other and lead with love. You gotta put one foot in front of the other and lead with love. Put one foot in front of the other and lead with love. Don't give up hope. Don't give up hope. You're not alone. You're not alone. Don't you give up. Don't you give up. Keep moving on. Keep moving on. You gotta put one foot in front of the other one. One foot. Lead with love. You gotta put one foot in front. One foot, and lead with love.
Let us join our hearts and minds in the quiet of meditation and prayer. Let us be open to the silence in our space this morning. Hear the sounds in the room, the noises here and outside. Let us begin to hear the soft beating of our hearts. Let us be aware of those people around us, our beloved community whose presence reminds us that we are part of this beautiful web of life. We are grateful for the sacred connections that enable us to remember, to love, to care, and to celebrate. This weekend is Rosh Hashanah, the Jewish New Year. This holiday marks the beginning of the Jewish High Holy Days, leading up to Yom Kippur, the Jewish Day of Atonement. For those practicing Judaism, this is a time for taking inventory of your actions in the past year and atoning for your mistakes, often by reaching out to people who you have harmed with words of confession and apology. It is a powerful religious practice. So in honor of Rosh Hashanah and these high holy days, I offer a prayer from the Reverend Lynn Cox. She was the Minister of Religious Education here at UUSS in 2004 through 6. Spirit of life and love, known by many names, and yet fully unknown by no name, we give thanks for this time and this place of renewal. We give thanks for the ability to begin again after the tragedy, after the loss, after meeting the challenges set before us. Holy Spirit, grant us the courage to continue on the journey, the courage to speak up for the well-being of others, for ourselves, for the well-being of our planet. May we forgive each other when our courage falls short. And may we learn to try again. Grant us hearts to love boldly, to embody our faith and our values in living words and deeds. May our hearts be open to embrace humility, grace, and reconciliation. Spirit of life, grant us peace. Peace and a sense of being in this world with all its challenges and all its beauty. Help us to cultivate together the strength to welcome every kind of gift and all manner of ways of being on this journey of life that we share together. We pray with open hearts and open minds. Blessed be. And now let us take a moment for the silent prayers of our own hearts. Blessed be.
I love my home and my neighborhood. I live in a townhouse on the edge of Midtown Sacramento. There's a little bit of community built in as my front door and porch face a shared courtyard. Some evenings I sit out front enjoying the Delta breeze, watching my neighbors come and go, and chatting for a bit. I'm on an end unit next to the alley, Democracy Alley. I love the quaint names of the alleys in my neighborhood: Eggplant, Government, and Historic, to name a few. Just the name of my alley was a selling point in these days when our democracy seems at risk. The neighborhood is mixed residential and commercial, so I share the alley with an armored car dispatch yard and an auto body shop. I like to walk most days. I walk a few miles into the heart of Midtown or towards Old Sac. Most of what I need is within walking distance: restaurants, shops, the gym, and of course, breweries. Even on hot days, I can walk in the shade of large trees overhanging the streets. There are homeless services, including Loaves and Fishes, about a half a mile from my home. So there are often homeless people passing through Democracy Alley, coming and going. On trash and recycling pickup day, at least once, someone will go through each bin, mostly to claim the aluminum cans. Sometimes a homeless person will linger in the alley. In the winter months, the exterior wall of my home holds the warmth of the afternoon sun and is sheltered from the wind. Occasionally, they will rest there and enjoy the warmth before facing the long, chill night. Or they will spend the afternoon drying out clothes or blankets between the winter rainstorms. My dog usually notices them before I do, trying to decide if they're friend or foe. I see more homeless people on my walks. I trust that you've seen them too. Being honest, some days I will alter my route to avoid the blocks with multiple tents crowding the sidewalk, or that one individual having an argument with an invisible opponent. My first reaction is sometimes fear for my safety, or revulsion at the smell of urine and feces, or frustration with the garbage piled about. Perhaps you've felt that too. They mostly avoid my gaze, not wanting to interact, I suppose because most interactions don't end well for them. The problem with homelessness has exploded in California in recent years. In Sacramento County, the census doubled during the pandemic. I often wonder about their stories, how they came to be living outside or in a car. UCSF recently released a study of homelessness in California that was very informative. You can Google it if you're curious, about all the factors that come to play, among them economic hardship, physical and mental health problems, drug addiction, and systemic racism. If the problem is to be solved, it will require a multifaceted solution and the engagement of nonprofits and governments at all levels. But what I really got stuck on was, what does it say about us as a community that we allow so many of our brothers and sisters to languish without shelter, to scratch out a meager existence, searching each day just to meet some basic needs for food, water, a bathroom, protection from the elements? What does it say about me as a Unitarian Universalist if I really affirm and promote the inherent worth and dignity of every person, as it says in our first principle? The appeal of that principle is what drew me into being a UU in the first place. So rather than focus on the problem that I could not personally solve, that is homelessness and all the causal factors at play, I started to think more about my response to it. That's something I can control. And if I really believe that stuff about inherent worth and dignity, then I need to get over my feelings of fear and revulsion and frustration. I can have those feelings and I can acknowledge them, but I also need to challenge myself to move beyond them. I decided that for my own good, I wanted my response to homelessness and to homeless people to be rooted in empathy and compassion. So now on my walks, I carry a few items to offer as a friendly gesture, or maybe it's a peace offering, a snack, a bottle of cold water on a hot day, or a large plastic bag to protect their belongings from winter rains. Sometimes they express gratitude, and sometimes they give me a look that lets me know that they know that this little offering ain't nothing. It is too little in the face of their needs to be a legitimate response. A little more than a year ago, when I was first attending UUSS, this congregation was gearing up for a day of action to successfully lobby the Sacramento County Board of Supervisors to make homelessness and housing solutions their top priorities for available pandemic relief funds. I was impressed by the energy and commitment of this congregation. I'm also aware of other groups here at UUSS that work to provide for the needs of homeless people. So earlier this year, when there was a forum after the service about efforts to address homelessness, I attended. Subsequently, one of our members who is engaged in this issue, Meg Gunderson, invited me to talk about how to engage more deeply. She connected me with the community organizers for SAC ACT, that is Sacramento Area Congregations Together, of which UUSS is a member congregation. And SAC ACT is part of a larger statewide organization, PICO. Through the efforts of those organizations, hundreds of people from around the state gathered on the Capitol steps this April to learn and to lobby our legislators to support specific bills to protect tenants and reduce the number of people that become homeless. That day, a smaller group, maybe 30 or 40 of us, piled into our state senator's office. She wouldn't meet with us, so we showed up anyway, to make it clear that people of faith that we as people of faith know there are solutions and legislation that we support. Those efforts have continued with local town halls with state assembly members and lots of phone calls. By the way, the primary bill of interest, Senate Bill 567, passed the Assembly and the Senate in recent days and is awaiting the governor's signature. But that's a separate story. I'm still a newbie at politics and lobbying, and I'm definitely outside my comfort zone. I am more of an extra body showing up in solidarity than actively engaged in the efforts. But it matters to me that we bring the perspective of people of faith to the forefront when trying to address homelessness, just as it is important to me to act out of empathy and compassion. And who knows, someday you may join us.
For that neighborly solidarity, please sing "We Would Be One." We would be one as now we join in singing our hymn of love to pledge ourselves anew to that high cause of greater understanding of than we have known
Every Sunday, our congregation gives half of the offering to a local organization that embodies our mission to be a force for healing in the world. Our community partner for the month of September is the Mustard Seed School. This school is a private school for homeless children from the ages of 3 to 15 and is part of Sacramento Loaves and Fishes. The school provides a nurturing, structured, and positive learning experience during a time of transition and uncertainty. The children and their families receive happy memories, survival resources of food and clothing, health care and counseling for children and parents. Mustard Seed assists them in re-entering the public school system. Thank you for your generosity to the church and to our community partner. This morning's offering will now be given and received. As the offering is brought forward, please join me in our unison response. May generosity bless our world, and may gratitude nourish our spirits.
It was August in 2020, and I was not excited to move across the country. As I drove from California to Boston, I was filled with trepidation about arriving in a new city. trepidation about traveling, fear about, well, nearly everything, given the situation at hand. It was a terrifying time to uproot, to lose a sense of centeredness. The first day I arrived at my new home following the road trip, I pulled into the driveway with my roommate and we sat in the car, trying to take deep breaths. The two of us were relieved that the drive was over, but really not sure about the transition ahead. The city felt big and also just empty. Everyone was ensconced in their homes, staying safe, sheltering in place. I'm sure you remember this time. How are we supposed to connect when this was the new reality? The very next morning, we were sitting on our ancient brick front steps, taking a break from unloading the car. We had our masks off, drinking water together on the hot, humid summer day. A man walked by and stopped. He was wearing his face mask, so he glared at us. He turned to us and said, "You two should be wearing your masks." We smiled since he was making a good point. We responded that we're roommates, we're just taking a short break. He then said, "New roommates should be quarantined from each other." He wasn't wrong. We explained that we'd been roommates for 1.5 years now and had just driven across the country together to move to Boston. The man immediately softened. He welcomed us to the neighborhood, and we got to chatting. Nearly an hour later, he went back to his apartment right next door. We were officially neighbors, and Boston already felt a little bit more like home. From that day on, my neighbor John was a fixture of my life in Boston. Roommates came and went, but John was a constant. He checked in on me when it snowed to make sure that I would position my car in the driveway exactly correctly to be able to shovel myself out. And I introduced my friends to him while I walked past him sitting on his porch. John was the first face of the community that eventually did welcome me to the city. He had grown up in the neighborhood I had moved to. He told me stories about the people who had come and gone before me, the houses torn down and rebuilt, his own childhood. Years after we met, John told me that I was the first neighbor he had ever really spoken with. The neighborhood had changed a lot since he was a kid. He grew up a part of a huge Boston Irish Catholic community, and he described himself as parts of groups of kids playing in the streets. Now the houses were either run down or recently renovated to be sold or rented out at high prices as Harvard students moved into the neighborhood. I was one of those Harvard students. Yet, in a time of much fear and division, we managed to choose our mutual need for connection over our obvious differences. One fall, John, my roommates, and I settled into an overly competitive rhythm of gifting one another baked goods. It started on Thanksgiving 2020, when my household dropped off 3 kinds of pie, noticing that John had celebrated the holiday alone. And then it continued with him buying us a done with finals cake. By the next year, there were both store-bought and homemade cheesecakes flying between our houses. I gave him a slice of my birthday cake, and he sent over 5 kinds of local cheese. We had to call a truce. So for the most part, our relationship was easy, neighborly in that stereotypical way. But sometimes our different beliefs, our flaws, our values bumped into one another. This was a lot harder. When I shared that I was studying to be a minister, John asked if I was going to try to save his soul. No. No, I said. I'm a Unitarian Universalist, inherently unsure that souls exist, and definitely sure that they don't need saving. John shook his head. He was taken aback. He stated, with a degree of seriousness unusual for our relationship, that he had seen a demon. This is how he knew souls needed saving. John was a Vietnam vet. I was dumbfounded, standing in my driveway, considering the existence of demons with my chatty and sarcastic neighbor. I think I tried to say something neutral and accepting, but I wasn't ready to say more, and neither was John. Last year, we stumbled into a conversation about abortion and then ran right out of it, knowing we could not change each other's minds. John was once offended to his core when one of my roommates brought him flowers. He considered them overly feminine and condescending. We had a few really hard conversations about that, and he eventually apologized for his reaction, but requested still no more flowers. Sometimes I would see him on his porch, and knowing that he would want to speak with me for an extended amount of time, I would enter my apartment via the back door. Because it was awkward to have these kinds of conversations with one another. Uncomfortable, knowing that there were some times when our own beliefs and norms were just not going to come together into a perfect place of mutual understanding and acceptance. We were different, and I wasn't always comfortable or ready for that difference. The minister and leader Howard Thurman calls us to love one another, not only because we might feel guilty for not caring for one another's needs as we are able, but instead because we have the miraculous capacity to be in relationship together. The miraculous capacity. The big abstract concept of tolerance, he says, is so much easier to enact with someone you don't know than with someone with whom you have a personal relationship. It's harder to forgive the faults of a friend than to accept that there are folks with different beliefs to yours. In hearing about John's spiritual life and his political beliefs, it was easier to judge him because of our pre-existing relationship, not in spite of it. How could my kind, generous neighbor doubt that my church was even a real church? That my religion stood on ground as solid as his Catholicism? Thurman offers a couple clues. He says one way to think about this is to make contact with the core of someone and to love them. He advises that this way you can look at someone's goodness, gifts, talents, and rejoice without envy or judgment. He says, I can look at your limitations and understand them without condemnation or bitterness. I don't think I'm there yet. For Thurman, Jesus calls him into this work as an example of that radical acceptance. But for me, my UU theology and values of the interdependent web of existence call me to do the same. Being in a relationship with my neighbor allowed me to practice this and allowed both of us to grow into a place of understanding one another's limitations and trying for that to not have condemnation or bitterness. I'm challenged by this story and by trying to put love at the center. I'm challenged by this call from Thurman because I often feel bitter about the ways we misunderstand one another, the way power operates to ask the marginalized for eternal patience so that people who do not understand. John once asked me about a sign he saw on one of his many long bike rides. It was a sign for a UU church, which are dense in the Boston area, and it said, worship every Sunday. He asked me sincerely, Rosemary, what are you all worshiping? Didn't you tell me that some of you are atheists? I smiled and I laughed, and I allowed myself to be grateful for the question. I told him that I think we're worshiping the potential for the divine to touch all of our lives, worshiping the miracle of connection, of life, of love. He interrupted, oh, so God. Yes, to some people, and by many names. That's the kind of genuine curiosity I want to bring, because asking those kinds of questions allows all of us to belong to one another, across division, across misunderstanding and fear. That's the way we can pry ourselves off of a path where we allow ourselves to be unmoved by calls to love yet more deeply. Once we're open to new relationships with neighbors, in diverse communities like Sacramento, this means our neighbors will always bring us new ideas, new stories, new challenges, new ways of being in the world. We can meet one another in holy curiosity, because as Unitarian Universalists, our charge to welcome one another does not end when we leave this place on Sunday afternoons. This is how we can come to deepen and expand this community, in the questions, the laughter, the awkward exploration, in the openness to a more expansive community. Let us work to extend neighborliness to all, including those right next door who we do not yet know.
Let's go forth in song as we extend ourselves out into our community and find that space for our hearts to be in a holy place. When our heart is in a holy place, when our heart is in a holy place, we are blessed with love and amazing grace. When our heart is in a holy place, when we trust the wisdom in each of us, every color, every creed and kind, and we see our faces in each other's eyes, then our heart is in a holy place. When our heart is in a holy place, when our heart is in a holy place, we are blessed with love and amazing grace. When our heart is in a holy place, when we tell the story from deep inside, and we listen with a loving mind, and we hear the voices in each other's words, then our heart is in a holy place. When our heart is in a holy place, when our heart is in a holy place, we are blessed with love and amazing grace. When our heart is in a holy place, when we share the silence of sacred space, and the God of our heart stirs within, and we feel the power of each other's faith, when our heart is in a holy place. When our heart is in a holy place, when our heart is in a holy place, we are blessed with love and amazing grace. When our heart is in a holy place, when our heart is in a holy place.
As we prepare to extinguish the chalice, please join me in speaking our shared intention. We extinguish this flame, but we carry the light, love, and commitment of this gathering into the days to come.
Let's go forth into our weeks with our arms outstretched, I guess, asking curious questions, receiving questions in good faith, and being yet more open. Amen, and blessed be.